Hi, welcome to Anhydrous Beauty, the art of waterless products. Today I want to walk you through what anhydrous products are, the different kinds you can make. I will show you how to infuse herbs in oil, and then I'll walk you through making hand and nail balm. So let's get started. Anhydrous products are among the easiest to make and very versatile. You might call them the building blocks of cosmetic making. They are great for beginners. They're safer than many other products. You don't have to use lye. You don't have to make water-based products that you have to preserve. Sometimes they require preservative, but not always. You can use herbal infused oils like we have here in the products, and you can use essential oils, fragrance oils, or in the case of lip balm, flavor oils. You can make tiny batches to test so you don't have to waste product, and they're easy to adjust to your liking. There are very different types of products that you can make that are waterless. There are lotion bars, whipped butters of the waterless type, balms, lip balms, beard balms, oil serums, facial oil, shower oil, beard oil, mustache wax, paw balm for dogs, and salves. That's just the beginning. There are more, but that'll get you started. Facial oils, shower oil, beard oil, anything like that is simply a blend of oils. The serums also contain oil-based additives that are concentrated and make it a more powerful product. Whipped butters are made in a variety of ways, but most important is that they are whipped. You will need a mixer to make them, or if you have access to a stand mixer, this is the attachment that you will use to whip your butters. It whips volume into the butter, and you can even double its size with this. It makes a light product that customers like, that the oils sink into the skin easier with that. Balms, lotion bars, salves, stick deodorant, and such are products that have wax and oil. Some of the oil might be butters as well, such as cocoa, shea, and mango. But they're very simple to make, and they provide a protective layer for the skin. So those are the types of products that you can make that are anhydrous or waterless. And now let's talk about infusing oils with herbs. So it's easy to infuse oils with herbs. So if you've been wanting to learn how to do this, you're in luck. You need to start with a clean workspace. Everything has been cleaned here. All the tools have been cleaned. I have an apron on. We're all set to infuse oils. So what we need to do here is we have clean jars, and these, you can sanitize these jars if you like. These are canning jars, so you can sanitize them by boiling them for 15 minutes. Or if you use other jars, make sure you clean them, scrub them very well, and spray them with 70% isopropyl alcohol and let them set until they are completely dry. You have to have completely dry vessels to infuse oils. You can't use anything with any kind of moisture in it. So that's the first thing to know. Here I have some oils that I infused several weeks ago. This is green tea, and this is very easy to infuse. It wants to sink to the bottom. I don't have any, there are no issues doing that one. Here is a rose petal infusion. Pretty easy to do. And here is calendula. And you can infuse the petals or the petals and the heads. The heads have a lot of properties in them, so I prefer to use the heads with petals whenever I can, but you can use just petals if that's what you have. And then chamomile. The little chamomile flowers, and you can see some of it likes to float, doesn't like to sink. Alright, so I'm going to move these out of our way. Oh, and this is one I just did. This is lavender. Since I just did it, it has not sunk down yet, so you can see it's crowding all at the top. And these are all done in high oleic sunflower oil, which, as you can see, pretty clear. This I did in olive oil, which is very yellow. So the color of your oil is going to make a difference in the color of your infusion. So let's set these aside. Today we're going to make a lavender infusion. I have lavender buds here. I'm going to simply pour them in the container. And as you can see, I'm about 1/3 full. Half to 1/3 is pretty standard, and it ensures that it will stay buried in the oil. So your next step is to pour oil slowly on top. I am using olive oil today. Okay, and then I put the cap on. That's almost it. What you need to do now is write the herb, the oil, and the date on the cap. And then you can do either a solar infusion or a cold infusion. For a solar infusion, you would put the jar in a sunny window, and then every day or so you would shake the jar gently to try to make sure it's all covered with oil and to get the buds to sink. For a cold infusion, you would put it in a cold, dark place. And same thing, shake it every now and then to make sure it's all mixed up. I keep cold infusions for about 6 to 8 weeks, solar infusions for about 4 to 6 weeks. What you have to do in about the first week or so is you have to open your infusions and check them to make sure they're covered. This infusion, the chamomile comes right up to the top. So I'm a little nervous about that. If anything is above the infusion, it's likely to rot. And obviously we don't want that to happen because then you have to throw the whole thing out. So we add more oil. And it'll take, depending on the herb, it'll take around a week before it's completely submerged and saturated. So make sure you check them for about every day for about the first week. All right, now we're ready to strain. Since we're going to be using calendula infused oil in the hand and nail balm, we're going to strain the calendula oil today. So we have a clean vessel, and I have a couple of choices. I could use a sieve like this and line it with, this is about 6 layers of cheesecloth, or I have a funnel, and it has this little insert in it with tiny holes that will help me to filter out the sediment. So I'm going to use the funnel because it's easy to do one-handed. I place the funnel in the jar and then insert the cheesecloth. And then I just pour the oil in. All right, now that it's all poured in, then I can take a clean spoon and push. And you want to really push on this, really force it, because there's a lot of goodness in these flower heads and petals that I want to extract. And if I didn't push it like this, then I would lose a lot. So it does pay to take some time to do this. I'm not going to do it as much as I would normally do, but you get the idea. And you can even take it with your hands and do the same thing to get more, because it is stubborn. It doesn't want to come out. We just all we have to do now is put the cap on. And then again, we have to label the herb, the oil, and the date, because you think you're going to remember, but you probably won't. Now this is all ready to use. Isn't it pretty light yellow color? Alright, so now you know how to infuse an oil. Alright, so we're going to make hand and nail balm now. Hand and nail balm is very good for rubbing into your fingernails and cuticles. It's got skin-loving ingredients such as beeswax, cocoa butter, castor oil, high oleic infused with calendula oil, and horsetail extract. Well, let's talk about cleanliness first. When you make product, it's very important to have everything very clean. You clean off your workspace, you clean all your utensils, you make sure your containers are clean, and make sure that there's no debris, and keep everything as clean as possible. I wear a hairnet so my hair doesn't fall into the product, and I wear gloves. And of course I always wear an apron because oily stuff is terrible to get out of your clothes. And here's a quick pro tip before we go on. We're going to be experimenting with product, which you probably will. Get yourself a little jeweler's scale. This little scale is very inexpensive and it weighs in grams and even partial grams. So which is important for these tiny batches. This is a small batch, but if I were making an experimental batch, I would make it even smaller. So this is an ideal kind of scale to use for that. So I have a double boiler here, and in my double boiler I'm in the process of melting beeswax. Now the reason to use a double boiler is because it gently heats the product, and then you don't have to worry so much about the temperature getting too high and things scorching. So we will continue to melt that beeswax, and we'll talk about the other ingredients in here. I will melt cocoa butter in it as well. Once the cocoa butter is melted, then I will add the 2 liquid oils. And once that's all melted and mixed in well, then I will add the horsetail extract and mix that. Okay, the beeswax is now melted or almost melted, so I'm going to add the cocoa butter. And once that is melted, then I can add the liquid oils. So while the cocoa butter is melting, we can talk about making substitutions. You can substitute any wax, any oil, or any butter with any other wax, oil, or butter. You can, if you want a vegan, for instance, instead of using beeswax, you could use carnauba or candelilla. Either one will work. You could also use something like sterile alcohol or acetyl alcohol, something like that if you wish. What you have to know, though, is that any of these substitutions will affect the final product. They are not all equal in terms of hardness or melt point. So it will be important for you to do a little experimentation so you can get the right consistency in the end. And hence the reason why we do small batches. So as this melts, we can talk a little more about the substitution. The most common butters that people use are mango, shea, and coconut butters. But there's a world of butters out there that you could also use. Philippi butter, you could use Mora butter, Murmuro. There's just a whole bunch of them that you could try out. So don't be afraid to test other butters that you're interested in or that you think would fit your product well. Okay, so I'm going to tip this just a bit so you can see. We've got the beeswax melted and the cocoa butter is melting well. Cocoa butter is nice because it melts at skin temperature, begins melting, and so it makes a very good balm oil, but any other oil or any other butter would work as well. Alright, so now that the cocoa butter is melted, we will add castor oil, making something for the nails, I want to use castor oil, so it's a standard one for me. And then here's our calendula infused sunflower oil. I use high oleic because it has a long shelf life. And I like to use oils with long shelf lives because when you make things for sale, unless you sell it instantly and it sells it quickly, then you could end up with oils that are spoiled, that go rancid in your product. So it's very important to me to have a long shelf life oil. Alright, so as we add oils, they're cool, so they make the mixture cooler. And so we have to keep stirring so we can get it all mixed up. Because you can see maybe solid parts in it. And there we go. It's about done there. And then the last thing we have to add is horsetail extract. And again, horsetail extract is good for any nail or hair product, so that was the reason I chose it for this. This is oil based, so I won't have any trouble incorporating it into the rest of my ingredients. Alright, so I'll take it off the heat. You have to make sure you don't get any water in the product at all, so you have to handle it very gently so as to ensure that, because any water in the product is going to be creating a bacterial situation, or microbial situation, and it will completely ruin the product. I had somebody once with an anhydrous product, and she had obvious mold in it, and she was wondering what the problem was. And after a lot of back and forth, we realized that she got water in her mixture, and that's what happened. So you have to be absolutely sure that there is no water anywhere. All right, we're ready to pour. So when things cool, as you know, they contract. So we fill this a little more full than I actually want it. And then by the time it cools, it will contract to where I want the fill to be. And this is the kind of product that you label by weight, because even though it's a liquid now, it will solidify, so it has to be sold by weight in the US. Okay, so here we go. This is all poured now, and you just have to wait for it to cool. What I do is I put a paper towel over it and let it go. I like to wait about 24 hours. You can go maybe a little earlier, but you have to be sure that the contents are completely cooled down. If you put the cap on too early, condensation will form. And condensation brings microbial growth. And microbial growth means like mold and bacteria. And we don't want that in our products. So that's the last thing that you have to do. Once it's cool, just cap it, label it correctly, and you're done. Now, as I said before, any wax or oil or butter can be substituted with something else. It's no problem. And you make tiny batches until you get what you want. Now, if the product that you're making is too soft, ends up being too soft, and you want a little harder, simply increase your beeswax percentage and cut back on your liquid percentage. If the product is too hard and you want it softer, increase the liquid oil, cut back on the butter or the wax, and preferably the wax, and until you get the consistency that you like. So do a little at a time. It might take a few batches, but you can always take the one you made, you can melt it and pour it back and add more. You don't have to start a new batch every time. But what you do need to do is take copious notes. Any little thing that you do, measure it and record it. And then when you're finished, figure out what you did, and then you'll be able to replicate it and scale up. Now, Everything we do, as you can see, everything we did, I had weighed out. We don't measure in cups and tablespoons. We weigh things out, and that way you get consistent product every time. We'll pretend that this is all ready to go. It's got a cap on it, and then you just label it properly according to the FDA's regulations or your country's regulations, and make sure that you stay within the cosmetic category. You don't want to be making drug claims. So have a great time making waterless products.